Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to recap the movie titled War for the Planet of the Apes. 15 years ago, a scientific experiment gave rise to a species of intelligent apes, but it also destroyed most of the human population. The apes were led by a monkey named Caesar, but soon a war erupted between the rest of humanity and the apes due to the rebellion of an ape named Koba. The remaining humans went deep into the north and gathered themselves to wage war against the apes. In the present, deep in the woods, a group of soldiers finds an ape encampment. The soldiers launch a sudden attack and kill a lot of apes. One of the apes signals the rest of the army for backup, and they immediately launch a heavy counterattack, wiping out most of the soldiers. One of them, named Preacher, survives and tries to call for backup, but is caught by the apes. Caesar, along with his subordinates, Maurice, Luca, and Winter, arrive and meet the surviving humans. Preacher tells him that they were looking for Caesar, but the ape explains that it was not him who wanted war, but his former ally, Koba. Caesar further tells them that Koba is already dead. Koba's former subordinate, Red Donkey, tells Caesar about the ruthlessness of the army colonel and threatens him. This angers the apes, so Caesar commands Winter to take Red Donkey outside. Caesar lets the captured soldiers go as a message offering peace to the colonel. Winter, however, returns to Caesar and tells him that Red Donkey managed to escape. At the lake, Caesar expresses his regrets about Koba to Maurice, telling him that his actions still haunt him. Maurice comforts Caesar and tells him that no one could have predicted Koba's rebellion. Shortly after, Caesar's son, Blue Eyes, and his friend, Rocket, arrive from a long journey. Caesar immediately takes them home to their hidden base at a cave behind a waterfall. The apes then have a meeting about their plans. Blue Eyes tells them that they discovered a new place to call home and that humans will not be able to follow them there. Winter urges them that they should leave immediately. Caesar silences Winter and agrees to Blue Eyes' suggestion that they be more tactful about their next move. Caesar reassures everyone that they will leave together. When night falls, Caesar stays vigilant with his sleeping family. He then notices an unusual green light. Curious, Caesar approaches the waterfall and discovers a military rope. Caesar tells Blue Eyes to stay on guard and protect his family while he looks for the invading humans. Caesar meets Luca and notifies him of the attack. He then ambushes a soldier. On the radio, Caesar hears the colonel telling the soldier that he killed the ape's leader. This prompts Caesar to hurry back to his family, where he meets the escaping colonel. The colonel realizes that he killed the wrong ape, and Caesar finds Blue Eyes and his wife dead. The colonel attempts to kill Caesar, but he dodges the attack. The rest of the apes arrive, and the colonel escapes. Caesar chases the colonel on the rope, but the colonel cuts the rope. Caesar falls down the river and swims away to safety. He then returns to his room and mourns with the rest of his friends. To his comfort, Caesar finds his younger son, Cornelius, alive in the caves. Due to the attack, Caesar relocates the entire tribe to the new place Blue Eyes told them about. However, Caesar stays back to seek vengeance. He makes his way to where the colonel is stationed, but Maurice, Rocket, and Luca follow him. Caesar tells them that he should fight alone, but the apes insist that Caesar needs their help. On the way, the apes find an abandoned village. They then find an armed human and kill him. Suddenly, a noise breaks out and the apes enter the house, but to their surprise, they find a young girl. Caesar deems her harmless, so he commands everyone to leave. Maurice, however, sees that something is wrong with the girl and feels sorry. Maurice asks Caesar to bring the girl as she won't survive alone. Caesar is hesitant but takes her with him anyway. The group eventually finds a human encampment. They scout the place, but instead of finding the colonel, they see Winter working with the humans. That night, the group sneakily finds their way to Winter's tent, startling the ape. Caesar immediately asks about the colonel's whereabouts. Winter tells Caesar that the colonel is no longer at the camp and that he's making his way to the border to meet more soldiers coming from the north. Winter then notices some soldiers outside, so he attempts to call for help. Caesar immediately stops Winter before he can make a sound. They were able to prevent the soldiers from suspecting, but Caesar accidentally choked Winter to death. Later that night, Caesar thinks about what he did, and his guilt drives him to see Koba's ghost amidst the camp. Maurice tells Caesar that the soldiers are leaving, so the group follows them. In a snowy area, the group loses track of the soldiers, so they try scouting the area from a tower. At the same time, a thief approaches one of the horses. Luca looks down and sees the thief and lets out a massive roar. The thief steals the horse and makes a run for it. The group immediately chases the thief to an abandoned mansion. The group catches up with the thief, who has surrendered and shows himself to be an ape. The ape introduces himself as Bad Ape and tells them that he is from the zoo where Caesar was once from. Bad Ape is happy that he is not alone and gives them food to celebrate. Caesar looks at the food and asks Bad Ape where it is from. Bad Ape replies that he found them at the border where the soldiers are. Caesar insists that Bad Ape take them there, but he refuses due to his fear. The group stays there for the night. Bad Ape tells Caesar that he looks sad and asks him if he has children. Caesar tells him about his family. Bad Ape sympathizes and tells him that he also has a child at the border. Bad Ape makes a deal with Caesar. If they help him find his child, he will take them to the border. The next morning, the group leaves for the border with Bad Ape's guide. When they arrive, Caesar commands Luca to scout the place. but while they are scouting, patrolling humans spot them. Luca pushes Caesar away and kills one of them. The other human threatens to kill Caesar, but Rocket immediately comes to the rescue. Luca is fatally injured and the group retreats to a safer place. They grieve for Luca as he draws his final breaths. Caesar is furious and tells others to join the other apes and goes to the encampment alone. Along the way, he finds some apes killed and their bodies tied to a stake. Caesar hurries towards the edge to see that his entire civilization is already imprisoned there. One of the apes behind him is still alive, so he immediately frees him and asks him what happened. The ape tells him that they were ambushed and the colonel turned them into slaves. Before the ape can finish talking, he dies. Suddenly, Red knocks out Caesar. When he wakes up, Caesar finds himself inside the camp with the colonel. The colonel asks him if he has come to save his apes. Caesar replies that he came to kill him. The colonel then asks Caesar how he found him, to which Caesar answers that someone told him that more soldiers are coming from the north to wipe out the apes. The colonel disregards the matter and puts him in one of the cages. Caesar sees his son Cornelius calling to him. Caesar, at the sight of the apes, rethinks everything and regrets his actions. When morning comes, the soldiers open the cages and the enemy apes start lashing the prisoned apes, forcing them to work. It turns out that the apes were forced to build a wall. Caesar wonders why humans need a wall and observes defense turrets on the walls. One of the apes tells him that the tribe is starving. While this is going on, one of the weakened apes gets into an accident. The soldier commands Red Donkey to punish the ape while Caesar commands him to stop. The apes revolt with Caesar and start raising their voices. The colonel then commands Red Donkey to bring Caesar. They force Caesar to kneel and Red Donkey starts lashing him. When the lashing stops, the colonel tells Caesar to command his apes back to work. Caesar refuses and tells him they need food and water. The colonel then points the gun at Caesar, pressuring the ape to obey him. Seeing the standoff, one of the apes initiates the work and the rest of the monkeys follow. The colonel commands Red Donkey to tie Caesar to a stake. On the other hand, Morris and the group are watching from a distance and plan for a way to save the apes. Later that night, Red Donkey takes Caesar to the colonel. At the command center, the colonel warns Caesar that if he interrupts the work again, he will kill his tribe one by one. Caesar then tells the colonel about his observations that the army coming from the north aren't allies but are against the colonel. The colonel is surprised and impressed with Caesar's intelligence. The colonel explains that they are fighting because the apes will eventually outclass the humans. He then explains to Caesar that the virus has now started taking away humans' ability to speak or think properly. It started with the colonel's son, whom he had to kill. After that, the colonel ruthlessly killed everyone who had the infection, prompting armies from the north to stop them. That same night, Maurice and the group position themselves closer to the camp to get a better look. They hear some soldiers coming, so the group retreats, where Bad Ape accidentally falls into a tunnel. The next morning, the soldiers finally distribute food to the apes except for Caesar. Maurice and the group search the tunnel, and they find a spot where they can easily dig a path inside the camp. Seeing Caesar in agony, the little girl runs up to the camp. Meanwhile, Caesar is freezing and starts to hallucinate about Koba again. He then realizes that Red Donkey is in front of him. Red Donkey releases him and forces him to work. While Caesar is sleeping in his cage, the young girl gives him water to drink. Suddenly, soldiers are approaching the cages, endangering the young girl. Morris and the group see this, so Rocket enters and makes a scene to distract the soldiers. The colonel is now suspicious of other apes and orders a patrol. Rocket then gets up and tells Caesar to prepare for an escape. The next morning, the colonel releases Caesar from his cage to work. Rocket and Caesar work together to count the steps that lead to the pens, and they communicate with Maurice by sign language. That night, the apes head back to the pen, and the girl hurries to Maurice to notify him that the apes are back in their pens. Bad Ape finishes digging the soft ground above, and they sneakily check on the pen. When the soldiers leave, the apes immediately meet Bad Ape to thank him. Maurice, however, notices that the tunnel is flooding, making them unable to dig towards the next pen. They inform Caesar, and he immediately improvises. The apes taunt the watchman by throwing mud at him, prompting him to enter the pen by himself. The soldier falls into the trap, relieving him of his keys to the pen. Rocket and Caesar sneakily make their way to the next pen, where Caesar reunites with Cornelius. They then begin escaping through the tunnel. Caesar, however, stays behind to settle his score with the colonel. Suddenly, the armies from the north attack the base. The soldiers prepare to defend themselves. Preacher, however, notices that the apes are gone. Outside, the firing slows down the apes' escape. Caesar finds himself in the command room and sees the colonel in his bed. Caesar picks up a gun and is about to shoot the colonel. But to his surprise, the colonel is infected and is unable to speak. The colonel then pulls Caesar's hand and points the gun to himself. This pressures Caesar, but in the end, he can't do it and puts the gun down. The agonizing colonel then shoots himself. The war continues to rage outside when one of the soldiers alongside Red Donkey spots the escaping apes. They shoot them down, killing a number of them. Caesar heads out and sees this, taking a pack of grenades with him and jumping out. On the front line, Red Donkey starts to feel guilty for killing the apes. A soldier commands him to grab a grenade launcher. He sees Caesar running towards them. Caesar is about to throw a grenade at a gas tank when he gets shot with an arrow by Preacher. He is pinned down and Preacher is about to deal a final blow, but he explodes. It turns out that Red Donkey used the grenade launcher at Preacher. The soldiers immediately shoot Red Donkey and then fire at Caesar. He dodges while reaching for the grenades. He successfully throws the grenade at the tanks, blowing the entire place up. Caesar manages to escape through the tunnel. He finds his way outside and sees a massive avalanche. This forces the apes to climb tall trees. Humans are wiped out before they can run. Caesar survives along with the rest of the apes. The war finally ends and the apes travel toward their new home and finally arrive at a beautiful place. The ape celebration is cut short when they realize that Caesar's wound has not recovered, causing him to lose a lot of blood. Maurice notices this, but Caesar tells him not to worry. He further tells him that they are finally at peace and can go on even without his leadership. Maurice speaks for the first time, reassuring Caesar that he will preserve his legacy for his son. Thank you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content.